Stephanie and Dawn and Kristen and Judy, if you want to unmute for a second and just check to see if your mics are working, it's always a nice little tester.
Is my mic working? Okay.
Is my mic working?
Hello, everyone. Working. Hi.
Hi, Judy.
I'm going to ask too. Am I working?
Good
Yay.
morning. I have to remember to unmic to say anything. I'm so looking forward to hearing from you, Isoki.
Well, I'm so happy to be here.
Okay. Hello, everyone, again. And I'm just scrolling through the faces. I like the faces part. I'm just going to ask Brenda. Is Brenda here, Erin?
I haven't seen Brenda yet, but I'm sure she'll be here any moment.
I think Brenda likes to make an entrance.
We can give her a moment too while we get settled. There's John and Emma, Sharon, Erin, Megan, Teresa, Lisana, Leanne, Nee.
Hello. I'm in.
You're in.
Yeah.
Hi, Nee.
Hello. Afternoon.
Hi,
Good
good.
evening.
It's evening here.
Yeah. Good
Great.
evening.
Okay.
Heidi, Sue, Virginia.
So just before we opened up the room, we have this virtual green room, right, where we all meet. And Brenda was there, and she said she was going to consult with her ancestors and how to open up this space. So I believe to respect that, we'll just have to wait. Ancestral time is different from marked time. And I think that's one of the gifts we're going to be introducing ourselves to in this dance. So we'll wait for her to come.
She is.
Hello.
Brenda, we have been waiting for you.
Yes, good morning, my loves. So I was sitting in meditation asking ancestors what we would want to start with, given our topic today. And they asked me to share a ceremony that I've done in the past at ancestor honoring and healing ceremonies. So it feels appropriate in this time. I will condense it a bit so that it fits into the time that we're in right now, because it is a little bit longer. So I'm going to invite each one of you to get settled in your seat and to get present and to slow your breathing so that you're present here today. And you may keep your eyes open, or you may close your eyes if that helps you to be more present in your body in this time, in this place. And as you continue to slow your breath, I'm going to read a short ceremony. This ceremony is from Together We Are One, which is a book by Thich Nhat Hanh. And it's a ceremony that was shared at a People of Color retreat that I went to many years ago, and it really touched me. So I am honored to share it with you now. So as you continue to breathe deeply, I'll read the words aloud, and then I'll explain your participation in the ceremony in a moment. We can honor our blood and spiritual ancestors in our home by establishing a physical altar for them. This practice of touching the earth is a practice of bringing our mindfulness to bear on what is right here in front of us and right underneath us. Touching the earth is a traditional Buddhist practice called prostration. Many people have confused prostration with an act of worship. To touch the earth is an act of reconciliation, not an act of worship. It is an act of coming home to what is here and what is now, of embracing and being embraced by our Mother Earth. It is important in prostration to either touch the earth or to extend our hands in her direction so we connect with her. This is not about idolatry, it's about coming home to earth and her capacity to receive what we need to let go of, to compost, to heal it, to transform it. What we're doing when we touch the earth is letting go, like autumn leaves that are falling off a tree. We're letting our afflictions fall, our sorrow fall, our anger fall, our disappointment fall into the earth and the energy of all that represents. The earth has a tremendous capacity to receive our pain and give back renewed energy. The earth does this with compost every day, all the time. I remember when I first realized that throughout my whole life, I have never had the experience of being disrespected by a tree, not once. I never had a tree say to me, "Don't you sit here. Who do you think you are?" I've never had a rock say that to me. The earth receives us all just as we are. So we release, we let go, we let our energy fall. So I'll read short portions of this ceremony and then invite you, when you're told to either bow to the land or touch the land, could be the floor beneath you, as we read the different sections of the ceremony. And I'll use a rattle in between the 5 sections, but we'll read them in a shortened form so that everyone can participate in here without it taking too much time. And trust yourself and trust your instinct about how you want to touch earth. You may wish to touch your forehead to the earth. You may wish to touch it with your hand. You may wish to shake your hands as you're waving to the earth. Trust that your body has the wisdom of what is right for you. There is no one right way. So before I begin the ceremony, I invite you to wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, and be in your body and let your cells know that all of our ancestors are present in us. Because when we look deeply, we are touching the earth together with them. And we want to stay with our in-breath and our out-breath all throughout this process, bringing our breath down to our center. So the first touching of the earth. I will read aloud. I'll shake the rattle, invite you to touch the earth, and then I'll read as you're touching the earth. In gratitude, I bow to this land and to all the ancestors who made it available. Bow in whatever way feels appropriate to you. I see that I'm whole, protected, and nourished by this land, and all the living beings that have been here and made life easy and possible for me through all their efforts. I see those known and unknown who have made this country a refuge for people of all origins and colors by their talent, perseverance, and love, those who have worked hard to build schools, hospitals, bridges, roads, to protect human rights, to develop science and technology, and to fight for freedom and justice. The second reading, I touch my African American ancestors, you who were enslaved and brought to this land, who poured your blood, sweat, and tears on this land, whose unrewarded labor helped to make this country an economic world power. Touch the world in whatever way feels appropriate to you. I am in touch with the crippling violence and inhumanity that my African American ancestors faced every day, the loss of your land, language, culture, family, and freedom, and how you always found ways to resist, to subvert oppression, to maintain your humanity through soulful singing, prayer, humor, revolts, communities of escaped slaves, as well as through political struggle, a strong commitment to education and economic empowerment. I aspire to preserve, nourish, and pass on your strength, patience, perseverance, love, forgiveness, humility, your creativity and innovation in agriculture, inventions, history, music, dance, art, the sciences, sports, oratory, literature, religion, civil and human rights activism, and community spirit. I see the many beings of your lineage that have contributed to this land, and in gratitude, I honor you all. The next touching, I touch my Asian American and Pacific Islander ancestors of this land, those of you from the Philippines, China, Japan, Korea, India, Nepal, Tibet, Burma, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific Islands. In your honor, I touch the earth. I'm in touch with you who courageously survived the devastation of war, colonialism, displacement from ancestral homelands, and who carved a graceful new path amidst the turmoil of dislocation and discrimination. I touch your experiences of Chinese and South Indian indentured servitude, Japanese American internment camps, anti-Asian exclusion laws, labor exploitation, land dispossession and contamination, refugee camps, family separation, hate crimes, and assimilation. I touch your sacrifice and contribution to the economic success of this land through your unpaid labor in gold mines, farms, canneries along the Pacific coast, your work in the dangerous construction of transcontinental railroads, and your many innovations in agriculture, textiles, manufacturing, and technology through the land. I honor the ways you preserve your body, mind, and spirit through music, poetry, literature, food, culture, community, and interracial solidarity. I aspire to preserve, nourish, and pass on your patience, perseverance, determination, respect for ancestors and elders, and commitment to youth and family education, arts, and your care to maintaining culture, language, and religion for future generations. I honor all of you who contributed and in gratitude for your contributions here. Next, I touch my European American ancestors, you who came to this land to find freedom from political and religious oppression and poverty, who came seeking a new vision of society. In honor of you, I touch the earth. I touch the deep insight and compassion of these ancestors, the Quakers, the abolitionists, the peace activists, the great conservationists. I'm aware that many of you lost your fortunes and even your lives to resist the oppression of people of color. At the same time, I touch the great suffering experienced by some of you in my ancestry who were misguided in their views, whose belief in your superiority led to the decimation of Native peoples, the horrors of slavery, and the exclusion of people of color. I pour all of this suffering onto the earth and ask the earth to help me transform it into wisdom and compassion. I aspire to preserve, nourish, and pass on your courage in coming to an unfamiliar land, your strong faith and commitment to democracy, your perseverance, respect for the arts, and ingenuity. I see all of the contributions from the people of your lineage, and in gratitude, I honor you all. Next, I touch my Latino ancestors of this land, you who are the children of the indigenous peoples of the Americas and the Spanish colonizers, some who for centuries lived on and built up roughly half of the present-day US and who are immigrated from Central and South America more recently. I honor you as I touch the land. I touch the blood, sweat, and tears you have poured into this land as farm laborers, skilled artisans, teachers, politicians, architects, and activists. I'm in touch with the suffering of my Latino ancestors due to war and racist policies like the deportation of 2 million American citizens during the Depression, as well as land and culture. I am in touch with the United Farm Workers Movement to end dehumanizing conditions for migrant workers, and I feel this collective energy, courage, intelligence, and dedication nourishing and supporting us. I aspire to preserve, nourish, and pass on your strength, patience, perseverance, love, forgiveness, humility, humor, your creativity, and innovation in the arts. I honor all the people who made contributions in your lineage, and I honor you all. And lastly, I touch my Native American ancestors, you who have lived on this land for such a long time and known the ways to live in peace and harmony with each other and with nature, protecting the mountains, forests, animals, plants, and minerals. I am grateful for all the foods that you, our ancestors, have cultivated to nourish us today and for the Iroquois contributions to our system of government. I'm in touch with the profound suffering of my Native American ancestors, genocide, displacement, racism, and separation from homeland, culture, religion, food, dance, and songs. I honor the bravery and leadership that has allowed our people to survive and thrive, and I'm humbled by the brilliance of our cultural renewal, the resilience of our traditions, and our deep generosity over the past 500 years. I release our suffering to the earth and ask the earth, sky, water, and fire to help me to transform it into wisdom and compassion. I aspire to preserve your medicine, ingenuity, humor, courage, dignity, clarity, compassion, art, cultural traditions, cooperation, and selfless service to community. I honor the contributions of all the people of this lineage. And then lastly, we'll bow to one another as I read the last part. I feel the energy of this land penetrating my body, mind, and soul, supporting and accepting me. I vow to cultivate and maintain this energy and to transmit it to future generations. I vow to contribute my part in transforming the violence, hatred, and delusion that still lie deep in the collective consciousness of this society and in all ethnic groups, so that future generations will have more safety, joy, and peace. I have a vow to commit to helping mend the hoop of humanity. I ask this land for its protection and support. May it be so. And I bow to all of you who hold all the colors of the medicine wheel in this circle. And we are complete.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you. And Eric,
Welcome,
would you like
welcome, welcome,
Thank
welcome,
you, Brenda.
everyone. Um, so lovely to see all of you. So we want to open space right now to hear some voices from the field, from the community, from this group. So we have about 10 minutes just to hear. The question that was in me this morning was, what's bubbling? What's bubbling in you today? So it's open. This is the space for you to share, and you don't need to raise your hand. You don't need to ask permission. Just jump into the center and speak.
This is Uli from Massachusetts in USA. I had an amazing week because all this is very new to me. Your language, everything about this whole thing. I've never done anything like it. And I was on the Facebook page trying to work that out and had troubles, but came across something somebody posted by Steve Jenkinson. And I went to that interview and I tried to listen. I didn't understand a word. And then I found a video of his grief walker and I watched it and then shared about it in a dialogue group I'm doing here. And it opened so much. I just could not believe it. It triggered a real big spiritual experience for one of my friends. And we had the most amazing conversation about ancestry and dying and the connection between life and death. It was just stunning. So I just wanted to say how incredible to find that thread in the midst of all this confusion. And it's beautiful.
Thank you for that.
This these last 2 weeks have been this ridiculous unraveling of kind of everything that's been certain in my life. And I actually missed the first live class because of that unraveling. And so it's been sort of seeping in sideways as I've been listening to the audio. And I think it's just part of it. I feel a little displaced because I haven't started from the very beginning. But it's just been like I listened to the entire last audio while I was taking a bath and kind of peeling off layers of dead skin, and it just felt like this ritual of just this scraping away.
I need to thank you, Brenda, for the ceremony, and for the opportunity to release tears. Thank you. To Thich Nhat Hanh, to all the wisdom that went into creating that ceremony. Thank you to the ancestors for helping us out. Cracked me wide open.
Hello, this is John from Kodaikanal, India. I hope everyone can hear me. I was, just before I came to the meeting, I was watching the conversation between Dita, Bio, and Jürgen. And what's bubbling in me right now is something that Dita mentioned about the body, about concrete reality. Just this whole situation against spiritual bypass, which I have been very susceptible to, and have also been, have seen it in people and gotten very triggered by it. So, just the importance of coming back to felt realities and the suffering and the pain, which needs to be honored and which needs to be lived through and seen for what it is. Yeah, that's what was alive. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Thank you for the ceremony this morning, and thank everybody for being here. My name's Deborah. And all that we've journeyed through together here, it's just continued on opening those doors and removing the layers of the veil that we walk through. And last week was, I liken this to a ripple effect. What happened to both of my daughters? They have different dads, and their fathers have suffered greatly from the colonization of the United States. And through their lives, they've been very strong men, but as they've aged, the hardship has finally started to wear them down. And it's been really hard on my daughters to watch the hardship they go through. And every once in a while, there's this ripple of, grief. It's from emotional grief that will emanate and just knock us right over. And it came crashing down last Saturday with my daughters, who walked very strong and through this world, being biracial Indigenous women, and just it was a good release. It was as the process happened with them, you know, some things came out about, you know, the hardship that we witnessed my youngest daughter's dad go through, and it took about two, you know, like it was under the surface for about 2 years. She didn't release that grief that she had. And we had gone out to do homework that day together. I was doing my work for this and she was doing her work for college. And then we went out to go pray afterwards, and then the gates came crashing down. But she was so beautiful. She said, "Don't worry, Mom. This is just shows us that we're ready to start dealing with the grief of losing my dad." So the ripple effect of colonization on everybody, people don't realize. Everybody.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Deborah. It's so nice to hear your voices and see your faces. I know that it's been quite 2 weeks that we've had together. It seems like a lifetime to me. So I just want to thank you for sharing in this little space, and we'll have more time for you guys to share later on. We have Isoke is here today with us, as well as Eve, who's the track leader for Track C. New Activisms of the Otherwise. And so we're welcome Eve. She's been off trekking in Nepal. And I just want to add that for me, this experience so far has been like really challenging in terms of some of my own kind of fear around wanting to make everybody happy. So I just want to put that out there and say that I feel like what John said about the body, and also like what I'm reading in the subtext beneath the surface, is like being willing to do the work on ourselves, and being vulnerable and authentic is what I'm feeling into, is the beating, pulsing heart of this experience together. So I just wanted to offer that, and working on de-schooling my mind in terms of homework and things to do and all of that. And just want to thank you all for your words and for your presence this morning. And I'll pass it over to my dear brother Bio.
Thank you, Erin. So I'm getting messages that my internet connection is unstable. The leprechauns are here again. So if you can hear me clearly, can I just see you wave? Good. Thank you so much. So I also want to say welcome and thank you to Brenda and Brenda's ancestors. I'm so glad that Aunt Isoke, like I said, I can't quite bring myself to call her by her first name. I respect her so much, and where I come from, it's a huge deal. So I call her Aunt Isoke. It's just one ontological decibel away from saying mom, but I guess that's as far as she likes it as well. So I'm so glad she's here with us today. I'd like to dive in immediately and just ask us to do something. No, this time we're not going to be screaming or doing anything of that sort. That might come up, who knows, ancestors and all. But I just want to ask you to, if you will, close your eyes and touch something, any surface. I have a cup of tea right next to me here. It could be any surface at all. It doesn't have to be a sacred object. Every object is sacred. It doesn't have to look sacred or feel sacred. It could be your laptop, it could be your computer, it could be your phone. Just want you to place your fingers on the surface and close your eyes, if you will. In a sense, direct all your attention to that minimal, tiny, infinitesimal space where your fingers touch the object that you're touching. And it's amazing, it's miraculous that I wanted to speak about, just before I invite Auntie Soke, though I might spend some more time. I was going to speak about touch, and Brenda opened us up on touch. Now, as you put your hands on that surface, remember that the story that we're being told in modernity is that you are not really touching that thing, that the negatively charged atoms on your skin are repelling the negatively charged atoms on the surface. So there's surface tension, there's repulsion, there's no real touch there. How close do we have to be in order to be the other? If you can, press further into that surface in an attempt to maybe breach the membranes and breach the boundaries that divide you from that object. How close do you have to press in order to really feel what that object is or what it's feeling? And how far away is far away? Okay, you can open your eyes now. I was going to give a writing prompt around that, but we'll do something around that maybe in the follow-up email. I'm going to tell a story, and it's a parable. But before I do so, I want to do so in the Yoruba way. I'm a Yoruba person. I come from West Nigeria. A brother of mine is here. He's also Yoruba, me. And we have a storytelling culture in which the storyteller is entangled with the storytelling process and the audience. There is no hierarchical relationship between the storyteller and the story listeners. And so in order for permission to be taken, or in order for the storytelling context to open, the storyteller shouts "Allo," and everyone shouts "Allo," and that's a way of saying, yes, tell your story, go ahead, and let's do it. Let's dive into this, okay? So I'm gonna ask you to unmute your mics, and when I say "Allo," I would like you to say "Allo." If you notice, I'm taking off like "Allo," and you are bringing me down to earth with the sensuousness of gravity. You're saying "Allo." The accent is down to earth. So here I go. "Allo."
Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
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 All right. Yes.
Hello.
You're bringing us
Down
down to earth.
low.
It's down low, okay? So I take up and say "Hello," and then you go "Allo." Right. So
Hello.
here we go again. "Hello." Hello.
Superman versus
Thank you. You can try it anywhere you go. It always wins people. Thank you so much. So I'll tell my story. Erin, how do I do this? So I need to switch to my screen right now.
I gotcha.
Okay.
You just are going to share your screen, right, Bio?
Right. Okay, so I just do that. How do I do that? Where's the share? Okay, there you go. Share screen, and here it is. Right. Okay. Can everyone see this? So I just felt it to be, no, not yet. It's still me.
Now we
okay,
can.
now good.
Ah,
Now good.
good.
Okay, good. So I'm just before Aunt It's Okay comes in, I just felt it would be great to talk about Ashe. If you've met any Yoruba person across the planet, there's a thing you say that maybe may sound like amen, but it's not exactly amen. It's Ashe we say. I'll tell you why we say that and the deeper onto-epistemological meanings of that and what that really opens us to, what that makes space for in this dive into entangled worlds. So I call this Ashe birthmarks, crossroads, and transraciality. And I'll tell you a story. So this is a parable of about obstacles. Um, Imagine that there was a girl that was stolen from her lands, and she was basically orphaned. She did not know her mother or her father. She did not have any family to call her own, and she was taken away from those that might be called her family, her community, her village, and exiled. Like most of us in our modern configuration of lives are exiled. And one day she decided, I'm going to find home. I'm going to go home. I'm going to seek out my people. I'm going to respond to the dreams that I've been having, and I'm going to find my way home. And so, um, after hearing of the beautiful sensuousness and the flamboyance of her people, after seeing paintings like this of the women in the land that was told to be hers, she decided to go on an arduous, hazardous journey home. Um, but she met obstacles everywhere she turned. When she got on a boat, it was the storms, and then she found out that when she prayed and said, "Mother," she spoke to a mythical mother and said, "Mother, guide me home. Take away this obstacle. Take away this storm." And after a few moments, the storm would subside and she would meet another obstacle. Maybe it was an angry person or a disagreeable person that stood in her path, or maybe she lost her way. And every time she spoke to this mythical mother that she hadn't met, um, the obstacle would go away. Eventually, she found her way home, and she expected it to be something like this, you know, pre-colonial, intact, waiting for her to arrive. But it was something more like this. It was already infected with the modern, it had changed. It wasn't exactly what was told her. It wasn't exactly what came to her in her dreams. And trying to find a way through the hustle and bustle of bodies and the chaos that was now supposedly her home, she ran into a village chief, a shaman. This was the portrait I could find of a shaman. Um, and the shaman listened to her and welcomed her and said, "Welcome home," and listened to her stories and reflections about her journeys. Was excited to know she was a writer and embraced her, gave her food and made her feel welcome. And then when she asked about her people, the shaman said, "These are your people, and this is your mother." And she was just about to let go and just feel and just, feel relaxed that my journey has come to an end, when the shaman announced to her that, well, this is your mother, but this is not your father. Because your father is all the obstacles that met you along the way. Your father is struggles you had to come home. Your father is the storm. Your father is that disagreeable person. Your father is the lostness. Your father is the restlessness and the disenchantments that you've been feeling. All the things that came before you and stood before you on your way home were also part of your home. And that night she wrote in her journal that that which crosses out my ancestor is also my ancestor. I will tell you why this is important. And this opens us up to a different imagination of belonging and indigeneity as we've been diving into the craziness of for the few weeks we've been together. This is a birthmark. I don't have any, or if I have any, my skin color doesn't allow me to see it. But my daughter was born with a birthmark around her lips, and my sister has a crazy heart-shaped birthmark on her shoulder. How many of you have birthmarks? I can't see everyone, but if you have a birthmark, just wave your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care. All right. I don't have one that I know of. But when we speak about birthmarks, the idea is there is a biological explanation for them. We don't exactly know what causes them, but we feel that birthmarks are just pigments, hyperactive pigmentations on our skins, the different types of birthmarks. I can't quite recall them at this moment. But in Yoruba culture, we call the birthmark Ami-Orun. I have my brother to correct me if I'm getting the pronunciation wrong here. Ami-Orun means the mark of the sacred, or the mark of beyond, if you will. And it's because we believe in some kind of reincarnation. Not the Vedic or the karmic kind of reincarnation, but the reincarnation that says when it's not about ancestors coming back, it's about a different notion of time. We can call it circular time. We believe that the world does not proceed along a line of linearity, and that everything is mangled together, space-time, location, bodies. And so we give our children names that reflect this sensuous notion of time. My sister is called Yewande. Yewande means my grandmother has returned. Yewande. There's Babatunde. You might have heard that name before. Our father has returned. But it's not so much a returning, like a coming back from the past. It's more of a realization that time is, the past and present and future are enfolded into each other. So what we take to be a birthmark is actually the fingerprint of an ancestor, if you will, that is still present. Our bodies are receptacles for the mangled pieces of ancestrality that is all around us. So a birthmark in Yoruba culture is believed to be the mark of the past that is still present. And if we think about ghosts, ghosts are not immaterial. They're vital, they're ineliminable aspects of our present. So let me just make that clear in this way. I quickly drew this just before the class started, and I scanned it and I made this a picture. So when we think about time, this is basically the way we imagine it. It's the Newtonian model of time. There's the past and an infinitesimal slice of now that is always moving into the future. And in this tiny, skinny, anorexic space is where we are. That's where we are. And we're moving towards the future. But a different, maybe I'll call it an indigenous notion of time, looks something like this. Call it thick time. And some indigenous realities and societies actually think of time in this way. In this realization of time, which coincides with quantum physics imaginations of time, there is no past or present or future. Let me repeat what Karen Barad says, that the past is yet to come. That's crazy. That's weird. That's queer. That's a revolutionary thing to say. The past is yet to come. It's not done with. So over here, if you noticed in the previous picture, there's a little person here. Actually, I drew him in the wrong place. It shouldn't be in the past. It should be somewhere in that center there. But here, we're not located in time. We're part of time's materiality. So you don't find us in time. You find the curves of time, the sensuous contours of time, congealing into us and then diffracting into other things, so that human beings are not the center of the puzzle. We're not the center of the story. The past is yet to come. The future spills into the present. Everything messy, carnivalesque, confusing, crazy, queer time. And I would refer everyone to read, probably I'll put it in my follow-up notes, to read about the double slit experiment. I've talked about it for so long, but I'll just refer to some beautiful essays around the double slit experiment and how it shows that we are in a messy, crazy, non-contemporaneous world, a world where time spills into everything else and spills out, a world where we are time makers. Our bodies are climate change, our bodies are time markers, And clock time, that's colonial artifact, is not the only way to think about time. So this brings me to the question, when we ask the question, who am I? Where do I come from? And how do we account for the bodily differences that we kind of figure as race? I think it's known to everyone and most people, or some people here, that the very notion of race is an Enlightenment production. It was made in the 18th century. It wasn't just scientific. It was created by economics, by politics, by religion, by a universalism, by a notion of human exceptionalism, by this idea that we could categorize people based on their skin colors. And of course, science is different today. It has since shape-shifted into something else. But when we ask the question, who am I? How do we account? How do we ascribe meaning to our bodies? And what does this Yoruba notion of time, or this quantum physics interpretation of time, and which is not distinct or separate from location or sacredness or our bodies or climate or place, how does this sensuous reimagination of the world make space for a new sense of racial justice? So I want to speak about crossroads and basically what crossroads mean in quantum physics, imagination, and indigenous realities. When you think about a crossroad, this is probably what you imagine, but this is not exactly sensuous enough, because in the world we're describing, the world we're coming home to, every point is a crossroad. You don't go to a crossroad, you're already at a crossroad. Our bodies are intersectional. Our minds are intersectional. You know, if you watch a cartoon, and I'm still a documentarian, history, cartoon buff, that part of me hasn't died yet. Schooling hasn't chased that out yet. When you think about in movies and when someone thinks, and the way we represent that visually, maybe in a thought bubble or in the person speaking, and we hear it, we can hear it. It's usually coherent. Thought is nothing like that. I don't know of any coherent thought process that can be neatly situated in a thought bubble. Our imaginations are radically different right now. As psychologists, we're coming to see that. I'm seeing these doodles appear on screen. Are they ghosts of some sort? I don't know how that's happening. Okay, I'll just take it to be our ancestors as well, pixelated ancestors. So this is not how we imagine crossroads in that mythology, in that quantum physics imagination. It's something like this, where lines intersect into each other, where inside, like a Mobius strip, inside is outside, where everything crashes into each other, where colors are saturated with the other, where I am you, where my ontology, the very being of my being, the nature of my nature, is conditioned upon your presence, which is the reason why we say namaste, or we greet each other and say, I am you, which is the reason why some Indians share the proverb that I've stored the excess of my wheat in the belly of my neighbor, which is why we have gift cultures. These lines intersect and crash into each other. So this is more like a crossroads that doesn't privilege the human or privilege the inside versus the outside. So taking everything together, birthmarks are like the powerful phenomenon of crossroads. The Yoruba people think about Ashe. Now, when we see each other, or when a king speaks to his followers, or when a storyteller tells a story, the people are usually known to say Ashe in response. And like I've said before, that's not like amen. It's like an acknowledgement that there are powers beyond us. It's a way of saying that power is diffracted around us. It's a way of just saying, more than just thank you, but let this be done, or let this happen as it has been said, which is something more than amen. And in Yoruba mythology, Ashe, the very agency that makes things change, is held in the hands of Eshu. Eshu is the trickster in the pantheon of Yoruba gods. And what's amazing is that when Christian philosophies came into Yoruba lands, they perverted the notion of Eshu and called him the devil. So in churches around Nigeria today, when people speak about Eshu, they're referring to Satan of biblical law. But Eshu is not Satan, he's not the devil. He's much more. He's not antagonistic. He's the person who stands in your way because the obstacle is part of your way. And what crossroads teach us is that we're not in control. There is no pure anything. There is no fixed point. Power is diffractive. Our motivations are widely sourced and cross-cutting. There is no primary or high or singular intention, because the crossroads teach us that we are like an airport, a trafficking of different others that are manifold and continually making us. It says that the self is a congealing of space-time matterings. And crossroads are important for how we make sense of difference. Now, I've called this ethos, or rethinking of how we think about race, as transraciality. And I'll write about it because I want to end this soon and open space for Auntie Soke. What transraciality, as distinct from transracialism, which is a different phenomenon, what transraciality says is that apart from the fact that there's no such thing as race, our bodies are co-constitutive. Our bodies are constantly in a dance with each other. As a Black man, one of the things that, as a Black, white, green, yellow, many-colored man, one of the things that I learned upon revisiting my culture, or learning or feeling the disenchantment of modernity, and I'll just take you through that process. First, I noticed my disenchantments with modern practices. I was teaching the university, and I became disenchanted with the university. And I traced that to colonial moments. I found that I wanted my true Black self. Where do I find my Black identity that was robbed from me when, as Okonkwo describes, white people came into our lands and colonized us? And so I decided to trace these feelings and restlessness to colonial heritages. I started to seek to exit the systems, oppressive systems, in a quest for pre-colonial restoration of my Black identity. And then, failing to find some pure iteration of my ancestrality, I came upon the notion of crossroads. I'll tell the story of how I met shamans later. And when I actually went to sit before them, they weren't like what I imagined them to be, like that parable I just told. They were using handsets, they were speaking in phones, they were using television and all of that. And that didn't quite sit well with me. I wanted a romantic vision of my Blackness. But what I learned, and this is where the parable came from, was that the things that stand in our way are also part of the way. The things that have infected us are also part of our heritage. We are a product of congealings, not neat threads that trace back in some convenient way to a golden source. The journey home is part of home. And so transraciality invites us to consider that we're actually co-constitutive and that we are beside ourselves, which is a beautiful way of saying we're crazy. Identity is queer. There is no way to situate it in a final, neat sense. I'll skip all this because I'm taking much more time than I want to. But racial justice, when we think about racial justice, modernity tells us that it's about evening the score, right? Leveling the playing field. Let's bring us close to each other as much as possible. Let's have racial equality. Let Black people be as respected as white people, and let's all sit at the table. Or let colored people have their say as well. And that's as much as modernity can give us. But still beating at the heart of the modern project is repulsion. It's the fundamental notion that there's a void between me and you. And no matter how much I press my skin against you as an object, there will be that repulsing agency and repulsive factor and force. But quantum physics squares classical physics, just like this Yoruba mythology of crossroads squares everything that we supposedly learn about what it means to be human. We're learning today that humans are not at the center of the planet. So away with human exceptionalism. We're learning that race is not the final arbiter of our differences. It's not the only way to ascribe meaning to our bodily differences. So away with that as well. So how do we make space for new ways of being together? It'll have to involve politics. It'll have to involve reimagining economics and our notions of the sacred. And I think finally that crossroads teach us that where I'm from is the other. And I know we think about ancestrality in terms of what has gone in the past. And I'm not going to dismiss that. There is advantage and there's potency and there are insights in thinking of things that way. But in a sense that I'm really excited about, I feel that I am from you. My indigeneity is all around me right now. It's not something I have to trace back to some conscious past or unconscious past that is done away with. It is present. It is in the infinite, eternal now. So we go back to touch. And I end with this, that repulsion drives the modern sense of touch. It's resistance. But what we're learning that we are always in touch. We are, in fact, it is touch that makes us. It is the obstacle meeting the path that makes us happen. It is the interrupter meeting the interrupted that makes us happen. It is the colonizer meeting the oppressed that makes us happen. How do we embrace our ironic, contradictory ancestrality? How do we make space for different notions of racial justice, thinking of the world as centrist? What other forms of responses and responsibilities are made possible by these openings? And so I'll end with that and with an ashe that all our ancestors, present and indiscernible sometimes, but inalienable, ineliminable, that's the word I'm looking for. All our non-human and human ancestors, all our pixelated, technological, objectified, reified ancestors and descendants would grant us the openings and the blessings that we need to open ourselves up to be porous to new imaginations of the always now. Thank you for that, Asher. Whoever wrote that Asher should win a prize or something. I don't know. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I would like to, I met Auntie Soke in California. No, in California, in Sonoma County. I just given a talk with Judy, who is here as well. And I'm so grateful for her presence and her work in Racial Justice Alliance and in Sonoma County. After I finished speaking, a lady came out and decided to lead everyone in song and singing. And it felt like home. It was a beautiful thing to behold. The video is available. You can go watch it on YouTube. I think it's there. But I felt a deep sense of affinity with her from that day forward. And amazingly, she got in touch with Chris, who is not with us today, one of our conch holders. And Chris brought her with Rochelle, another sister of mine, to Tita's house where I was staying. And Auntie Soke blew my mind. She was this powerful, feminine, maternal presence. And I'm so grateful for my friendship with her. I make bold to say that I'm a son of hers and I want to listen to her wisdoms and her life of experience and all the markings of her bodies and her many selves that want to make themselves known today. So with that, Auntie Soke, the floor is yours.
Bio, you need to stop sharing your screen.
Yes,
There you
I just did that. It's
Ave,
okay.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe.
Let us all take a moment to just quiet and configure a response to bio. Allow some image to arise that carries appreciation and awe. And trusting in the idea of non-locality, let us each now project that appreciation to bio. Thank you. Thank you. So I have tons of notes and I don't want to use them at all. I just want to trust the spirit. And I'm going to start by bringing in the power of sound. I am open and I am willing to be broken, freed from these chains for the future and right now depends upon this. So lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly. May the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though it burns our eyes. And you can join me. I am open. I am open and I am willing. And I am willing to be broken. To be broken, free from these chains. Freed from these chains. The future depends upon this. For the future depends upon. So lift me up to the light of change. So lift me up to the light of change.
Diffractive singing.
Wow.
The power of song I learned from my people.
Yeah.
And continue to learn from all the people all over the world. We all know the power of song. But it took on a particular significance with enslaved people who had so little else. So little else. And I hadn't even thought about this word until you said, bio, that we are besides ourselves. And you know, that is the definition of ecstasy. To be outside oneself or beside oneself. And that's one of the things that song does, is it brings ecstasy. It gives us an opportunity to drop identity for a moment, to be freed for a moment from personal identity or normative identity. And what I wanted to invite the group to consider today is what it means to attend to someone's experience. The opening ceremony did that in a collective way, yeah? Attended to the experience of groups of people by naming and showing recognition for what is and what has been, both in terms of the horror and the pain and in terms of the contributions and the values. So again, I thank you for that, Brenda. Very powerful. So attending to experience. I learned about this, I think we think that we're doing it all the time, but in my experience, we are very unschooled in how to actually attend to someone's experience. So I want to tell a couple of stories that illustrate what I mean by this. The first story, I was in Portugal, in Lisbon, and I had been to a cathedral, and something about that place that was saturated with experience caused me to drop to my knees and just weep. I could make up all kinds of stories about it, but I just knew that it had to do with this notion. I think it's a Bantu word, and the word is Hantu. It's the power of a place. That places have force as well as do people and things and etc. And so the force of this place brought me to my knees. And when we left, I guess I was wide open, because as we were walking toward the hotel, I spotted out of the corner of my eye what I thought was someone holding up a mask, a Halloween mask, a scary Halloween mask. And I did a slight double take and realized that I was looking for the first time in my life at someone who had a severe case of elephantiasis. And how I was affected must have been evident, because my wife and daughter my wife looked at me and said, "How about you go back to the hotel and do what you need to do, and we'll go to the grocery store." So I went to the hotel, and I flung myself down on the bed and wailed and wailed and wailed as images cursed through my mind and my heart and my body of what life must be like for this person. I found myself talking to this person, asking, "Has anyone ever kissed you? Has anyone ever stared lovingly into your eyes? Has anyone held your face? I wish to be that one. I wish to be that one." And this probably went on for about 20 minutes. But what I want to say about it was that it was one of the most ecstatic moments of my life, in which I connected to my own experience as well as to the existential experience of woundedness and brokenness and what we call grotesqueness. I never, ever would have been able to do that without having had years of practice of noticing what's going on for me and surrendering. I want to actually offer you a definition of that I learned from a teacher. The term is reflexive participation. And this idea, it's actually a capacity. Reflexive participation is a capacity. And it can be defined as the practice of surrendering through creative action to the necessities, meanings, and possibilities inherent in the present moment. So with many years of practice doing that, I was able to actually surrender to the pull of that image, that person, that moment in time. And I think the last thing I'll say about it is that it left me feeling, I felt so much joy to actually be fully connected to an experience. I don't know if you can, relate or what you think about that, but because it feels like, how could there be joy? But there was deep, deep inside of that cathartic moment. I felt joy. I felt like I touched the heart of joy. So that's the first story. The second story is of a time when a teacher of mine, whom I adored, gave me some feedback that was very painful to hear. And it wasn't meant actually, anyway, I won't go there, but it was painful. So there were 3 of us in a room and the teacher was on a speakerphone. And I gave a suggestion about something that I thought we should do. And I discovered in that moment that he was angry with me about something else. And he used that moment to show me how angry he was. So he said, we're not doing that. And furthermore, you're a loose cannon and you're willful. Now, I mean, really, this was a father figure for me who, it was devastating. And so then, he said, you can stay on the phone with me. I've just given you a big dose of poison. You can stay on the phone with me, or you can turn to your group and let them help you integrate this experience. And I opted for the second. We went into our ritual space, and my wife, after, I collapsed on a chair, just totally like lost, couldn't figure out what was going on. Anyway, it was very painful. And my wife came in to the center of the room, rang the chimes, which was the symbol of now it's time for us to ritualize this moment. And she, who is Portuguese, has white skin, straight hair, brought in to the space an African woman, an African American woman. And she just started moving through the space rhythmically and saying, you're damn right I'm willful. I had to be willful. When they snatched us and dragged us off, I had to be willful. When they crowded us in the bottoms of ships, I had to be willful. When they sold our children, and she just went, it was like she was a Black creature. And I could feel this, like for the first time, it felt like ever that I didn't have to carry the burden alone, like somebody else knew the subjectivity. Someone else was expressing the subjectivity so that I didn't have to. And I could feel myself like just letting down and getting to the grief rather than just this collapsed state. Another person in the room was another white woman who is very compliant and very agreeable. She dropped down on her knees and crawled over to me and put her head on my knee and looked up at me and said, show me how to be willful. I don't know how to be willful. Those 2 actions together broke me wide open. I just wailed. So I'm telling these 2 stories because this is for me what it means to attend to experience, what it means to attend to one's own experience, and what it means to have others attend to your experience, and how liberating it can be, and how deficient we are in our culture to actually do that, to listen well enough, pay attention well enough to know how to contradict the distress that someone might be experiencing. So with that, I think that's where I want to stop. And I want to ask you, one of the steps toward establishing this as a practice is to ask the question, how are you affected? So this is a very different question. We're not talking about what do you think? Because normally in our culture, when we're asked how we're affected, we have a string of intellectual responses that want to come. They are assessments, they are opinions, they are editorials, they are all kinds of things besides direct experience. When we ask, what is the direct experience? How are you affected? We're asking you to get as close to the bone as you can around what's been evoked for you. Is this clear enough? I just want to hear from, I just want to stay as close to this experience as possible and hear from you how you're affected by hearing these two stories from me. From me. And we can jump in anywhere, and your responses will help me, so.
This is Fran talking, flying Gavia. I would say I feel, and I'm probably going to burst out crying here, but an emanation from my heart of permission to simply be, to simply experience life in its full intensity. And that it's as good as, it's all of our lives expressing itself through me and in my own way. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And
Just
thank you.
Whatever is there, be there. Mm-hmm. Who was about to speak?
Priya here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm just trying to find you on the screen.
Away with you.
Keep going. Don't let that stop you.
I just had like a floodgate open up, and I'm still shaking and leaking. I just want to say thank you for sharing those stories. Thank you. Still shaking.
And we don't have to hurry, Priya. We can be with you for a moment, even if you don't have words right now. Just let us be with you. We always have to hurry to have our experience. That's part of the problem.
This is the first time I really feel moved to show up and like speak in this group. And just feeling a lot of validation and acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's okay. Can I share? I'm a little scared to speak, but I'd like to share too.
Please. I'm just trying to find you.
I'll wave to you also. This is Erin.
Okay.
And thanks. I like your word, Priya, of leaking. Because my tears have been flowing since you started singing. I'm so moved. And your story about father figure teacher wound, I have that in my history really significantly also, a teacher who was really important to me and didn't have the community experience like you described. And it's so healing just to hear you share that. I don't know what more to say about it, but it's a huge gift just to imagine into that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Signe. Your voice and your stories, I wanted this virtual reality to be gone and to be able to walk right next to you and ask you to put your arms around me and hug me. I wanted you right here with me because I felt the maternal strength of all of us, the feminine and the holding space. And I love you and I loved it. And if you were by me, I would ask you to hug me.
Oh.
I would hope you would. And sing and sing and sing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Marnie. May I speak now? Marnie Dale here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Marnie.
Okay. I really appreciate what you've said and your stories. I have been reading a book that my great uncle wrote. It's the history of the ancestry of my father's side from Thomas Vale from the 1600s. And in this book, it's a very, detailed as far as he could go with who descended from who and so on and so forth. And when they came over on the Mayflower and all this kind of stuff. And part of what is in there is people's wills. And these people are giving this to this son and this to this daughter and this piece of land and this goat and this cow and these people, they were simple people. They weren't literate. They put their...
Uh-oh, something happened. I can't hear you anymore, Marnie. It's like your screen froze.
Hello, Marty.
Oh, what do we do, Erin?
We just have to carry on, and the technology plays its trickster roles. She'll come back.
I would say something in the meantime, if that's okay.
Yes.
I didn't know it was possible. I didn't know you could be received in community that way, the way you described your story. I didn't know that was possible. And I'm heartbroken to know it's possible, and I haven't ever seen it in my lifetime.
Yes.
And that I'm so unskilled myself in being able to hold anybody in their experience. But I could feel the power of that and the release and the relief of being experienced and people stepping forward to hear you properly and move to action when you can't. So, thank you for showing me it's possible. Mm-hmm.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
I think I can come back now. I don't know what happened. I got lost there, but nothing new about getting lost, right? Anyway, I was reading all these accounts of people, what these men gave in their wills. And hearing your story, your stories, and hearing your singing, I had this connection between all this grief of what these ancestors and what people now and me and all this grief that is just overwhelming, but it's also connected to the ecstasy of the beauty of the people that have really been in my life and have influenced me, like my grandmother and my grandmother's I guess she called her maid. She brought her with her from New Orleans when Ruby was 14 years old, and my grandmother came north to get married and brought her maid with her. And Ruby she helped to raise me, and she helped to raise my mother and her generation. And these people were very important, but they were so marginalized. Even though my grandmother loved Ruby and they had a psychic connection and everything, Ruby just did not have the advantages that we all had. So this grief is just almost feels overwhelming. And but the beauty is in there too, and the ecstasy of the beauty and the connection. So that's all I can put together right now, but thank you very much for listening.
You're welcome. Well, I do want to say here that this capacity to hold, I kind of imagine it as a spaciousness, like I feel myself over the years of developing these practices becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, which is interesting given that I'm also a big woman, but that I have developed the capacity to hold more. And it's my deepest desire for our country in particular, for the world, but for our country, those of us who are USers, that we somehow can develop this capacity, because it is the lack of this capacity that makes us, shut each other down. At every turn, we are shutting each other down. And it's because what gets activated in us, right? We're getting evoked by other people's experiences. This is one of the things that's so powerful to understand. I'm evoked by you. You're evoked by me. And if I haven't developed the capacity to deal with how I've been evoked, I will need to do some kind of compensatory thing to shut it down, to push it away, to all kinds of things. So this capacity for me is almost the mother of capacities. It's the mother of empathy, for sure. So
I feel called now. It's Kristen.
Yes.
As you're saying this, because what God evoked in me as you're speaking is this very intense feeling of a clenching in my throat and feeling like someone was standing on my chest. And what's interesting is you're talking about the capacity, as I feel like this is who I was as a young girl. I had this capacity.
Yes.
And it was strangled out of me. It was not accepted. So I was not allowed to evoke and emote in this way. And I fortunately have been, I've redeveloped that capacity. But it's so interesting to feel as you were speaking and as everyone was speaking in the permission, to feel how tightly gripped this has me, and how much further I'm being called to further develop this capacity and not to succumb to the messages I've been given that this is not okay. This is not how we operate in our world. I know this is how we need to operate. So thank you so much.
How about for a moment, everybody just, in whatever way you can, shake or something, give the body some permission to move the energy. Mm. And yes, if sound wants to come out, let some sound out as well. Oh.
Wish we could dance.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to say that in terms of, you know, these practices of uncovering and recovering, there is a pattern, there is a flow to it, like the ocean, you know, like there's the breaking of the wave and then there's the quieting. And so we need to develop practices that help us to partialize, that is like fall apart, as we did a little bit here, some of us, and then practice that help us to recohere. Right. These, so that we're never, because some of the fear of this work is that we're going to fall apart and not be able to pull ourselves back together. And it's very important to feel confident that I can fall apart and come back together, fall apart and come back together. One way to do that is just to actually shift our attention, you know, to something beautiful, to something delightful, to something sometimes mindless. We have practices where you say, okay, you know, say your driver's license number backwards or something, or how many right turns to your house, or if you were going to bring a salad to a party, what a fruit salad, what would be in it? Yeah, just to help us remember that we actually are very, very good at managing and what's the word? We live in a world that forces us all the time to stick it back in, pull it back in, pull it together. And so we do know how to do it.
May I share something? This is Anila.
Hi, Annie.
Please do.
Hi. I had an experience this spring where I was traumatized. And it took me a long time to actually have the courage to talk to the person and say something. And I did it in writing, and I kind of wrote out exactly how I felt there was harm done. And the person, kindly enough, and he's very educated, he's even a psychologist, and he very kindly acknowledged, you know, wow, I thought all that stuff was all okay and everything was fine and there was no problem anymore. And but he will work with that. A month later, he was sending me an email back and asked me how I was. And I just felt that he didn't hear what I said. He heard his part and he acknowledged his part. But he didn't hear how much harm he did to me. And so I was really wrestling with that. And then I ended up writing him another email and told him how his action affected me, how it harmed me. And I mean, within the shortest time, I got an email back saying apologized for he didn't realize how much it harmed me. And even so, I felt I actually laid it out, but he did not realize that at all. And he never meant it to be that way. But for him to acknowledge that he actually harmed me, not what he did, but acknowledging that he harmed me
Mm-hmm.
was like a life changer, and I could finally move on.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and so when you're telling your story, that acknowledgement that you're hurting, that is just so powerful.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing yours too. Yeah. Mm.
Can I add something? Can you hear?
Yes.
Hi. It's very strange. I came in late to the call because I had another call, and wow, I came into the call and I just felt so much. Like just about 10 minutes ago, I just came in and I felt such a change in energy. And I think Erin was saying something about how to hold sacred space online. And I just felt, I could feel this energy, this just seeing the faces and the feelings and the emotions. I was like overcome, like, because I just come from a very different space, and I'm just straight away into this. I'm feeling the tumult and the emotions and so on. So I don't know what was even said before to lead to that kind of opening and this breaking and this evoking of this need of a capacity to hold. But it's been very strong in my life, always, throughout my whole life, being pushed and pulled, and my mind, like, there's a lot of anxiety and so on, and feeling I could never get over it, and how to hold. And last November, I went to Thailand, in some ways to reconnect to something about the East and this land. My ancestry was in Bangladesh, which is close by, but had this sense of trying to come to something. And I was sitting under a tree in a rainforest, very ancient rainforest. I could feel so much power in that rainforest. The animals were, I felt so small in this, the sounds of the birds and things were so strong. Sitting there, and I remember asking, just in the middle of the night, the question was about, how can I grow roots like you? And then almost this answer came back, it's very simple. It said, stay still, don't move so much.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a profound, for me, feeling of like, and my mind not just like, it was like a sense of this root of like, because all the time my mind is like, is it this or is it that? Do they mean this? Do they mean this? Do they mean that? Or do I say this? And it was just, don't move, just stay still, and then allow nature to allow your rootedness that you have, and we don't even recognize. Let it just come through. Let it come through. Breathe.
Beautiful.
Just breathe, and that breathing has led me to something of like, like to let go and just to breathe and not hold so much in my head and just keep breathing.
Thank you. Mm.
Could I speak? No time for that?
Yes,
yes.
I'm trying to find you.
Hi, I'll wave. There's been a lot of talk about space and all the different kinds of space. And something I've been holding in my own practice has been it's called the interstitial space, the interstitial fluid that's between each cell.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very small. And the way that I've found into it is to let go of any desire to move. And really the way that I found to be most helpful is even to just want to move, even to just look at one finger and then wait until that space has a desire to move. And it takes a long, long time. But the feeling of movement is so different than just deciding to move a finger, even if the decision to move the finger is to move the finger slowly. The decision, the waiting and the staying present with something so small and allowing that space to move, it has a real potency. And I think that there is sort of like within that space, within the cells, I think there's a potential to find that sort of queerness of space and time that Bio is talking about. And also that ability to really see what is being evoked, and that capacity to stay still as long as is needed. you know, everything that has been shared today has been really moving, but the part that made me leak was when you said that we can just stay present with whatever is coming up. We don't need to rush off, and feeling how so much of what sort of prevents me from sitting with the sort of widespread reality of everything is this feeling like I need to do something because there's so much that is hurting, so I need to do something. And so coming back to really just be still, even though that's still, like, it's not an easy thing to be still and let the experience be felt. It's like to not want to just get up and do and get up and fix and get up and heal. So, and I also, there's been times when, because however the technology is working, your face has stayed biggest in my screen while you've been listening. And it's just, I want to thank you. It is so beautiful the way that you listen. So I just wanted to thank you for that as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I have an invitation for you all. And the invitation is that one of the best ways of getting close to the bone, I don't know why that phrase keeps coming to me, is by contacting the youngest parts of ourselves, because they are still here and they know how to be without a bunch of words and a bunch of concepts. So the invitation is to, when you know that you're being evoked, to see if there's a young one nearby who can actually have that experience. So this became really clear to me in the political climate that we're in right now, when I felt myself getting really frustrated with all the adult talking about. Even when it's angry, even when it's scared, whatever it is, it's still not close to the bone. It's still somewhere else. I talked to Bio about this, that it's like someone is trying to mediate my experience rather than the one who's actually having the experience. So the invitation here is to actually try to feel who is having this experience. And for me, the one who's having the experience the most around what's happening politically is about 9 years old. And she is so upset about her country. She doesn't want to be here. People are too mean. It's not what it's supposed to be. So I'm like letting her lead a little bit, right? Because what if some of these young, tender, unsophisticated parts have something to teach us as a collective about how to talk to each other? Because it feels to me like when she speaks, she doesn't make other people want to argue with her. But when the adult me speaks, it almost always evokes an argument. Somebody always wants to kind of come into some kind of conflict with what I'm saying. So I don't pretend to know down the road what the value of it is. I just know that it feels right to me. So the invitation is, like, as you're going about your lives over this next period, to, like, every now and then when you can, just notice, like, when something upsets you that you hear on the news or something, is there a young one who can actually have the experience of being upset rather than the grown-up? And maybe you could journal, about what that one would say. My experience is that they have very short they don't do dissertations. They don't do long things. They say the same thing a lot. I will.
Okay.
I should stop, and we should do what we do next, which is to have some closing, yeah?
But it's okay. We lost about a few seconds. You were frozen
Oh,
for a
okay.
moment there. And it was frightening to many faces. I could see, like, that didn't just happen. Could you just just take, repeat what you just said, final sentences?
Oh, the final sentences?
Yes.
I think I just, after I said, you know, to do some journaling about letting the young ones speak, I just said, I think with that, I'm done. And we can move on to whatever is next. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being a mother and our big mama, as you so eloquently describe yourself.
Yeah.
Erin has helped us capture that, the invitation, and we will share it in the follow-up text and with everyone. So, I remember speaking with you, Antisoke, in Tita's house, and I remember you uttered a phrase that we need effective muscles. We need to strengthen and develop our effective muscles to hold even the most damning of all emotions, hate. And I think that's a powerful thing to say at this time of painful divides, when it seems that we're losing track of the other side. And I'm just reminded of that saying that in a game of sides, the one thing we lose more than any other thing is the other side.
Yes.
And I want to, and I feel the energy in this, our cyborg community, if you will, the yearning to be able to say, brother, sister, you're my family, to be accepted, to be held, for my fragments to be ordained, and not to be tossed away. So thank you for holding this space. And thank you for everyone for creating this space, for making it an Allah moment. The teacher is everyone here. And so, okay, you want to do an Allah to just take us to Aaron? Before we do that, you want to do an Allah call? I know you know about that thing.
Okay.
Okay. Let everyone unmute your mics. Just unmute your mics. Take the liberty needed. Yes.
Am I the caller? Am I the story?
Yes, you're the caller. You're the caller.
Hello.
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 Hello. Aaron.
Another one.
Hello.
I can feel that part of me that doesn't want to let you all go.
Thank you so much.
Let's just do things like this for our entertainment all day long. I love it. Thank you to everyone, and I really resonate with Bio's words of like remembering that we're all the teachers here and the learners. So I just want to really like express my deepest gratitude for the weaving of this space. A few things. So I want to thank, first of all, we have some folks that have been helping us and supporting us in capturing these sessions. So today, Emma is working on a poetry scribe harvest. So it'll be quite different than what Miles did for us last week. Thank you, Miles, too, for that very wonderful, detailed harvest. And Nicole is going to be doing some graphic capturing of what happened today. So, and there may be some other surprises that emerge coming out of this kind of rich ecosystem of gifts that we have in this incredible community. And I wanted to open space for anyone else who wants to share any invitations. I've been in lots of conversations about offerings, dialogues that maybe are wanting to emerge. And there's a few people, I think Emma has her hand up over here, so maybe she wants to say something. Yeah, just a little space for any other folks who made offers in their registration forms and have something that they want to share with this whole group.
Erin, just to quickly say that John Machin,
yes,
Machin in Kodaikanal has offered a gift of making this session a song. I have no idea how he's going to do that, but he says he's going to make this entire session a song, and I shouldn't really speak for him because he's here. So maybe if he wants to speak to that.
Oh yeah, and thanks, Bio. So, well, there's a companion here which they call a guitar, and as fearful as I am to even touch it, I'm going to do it, and I want to harvest all of this and try to make us. Oh, this is the nine-year-old speaking, and I guess it's okay for me. So bad pun, I guess. All I wanted to do is sing for you. And why did you not let me? Is the question I ask. So yeah, I'll record something and send it to everyone. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
I wanted to say something. This is Rita. Can you see me, hear me?
Yes.
I'm feeling a river of grief in my body, and it feels like it's grief from the whole world, the whole universe, from everybody. And if we were all together, I feel like that we would be in a grief ritual, and I can't bypass that. I can't go to trying to be happy or mad. Like, it's in my body, it's in my heart, it's in my belly. My body is having a grief ritual. So I guess what I want to offer is that anybody else that is feeling that maybe we can continue the grief ritual in our own rituals, on our own land, by the ocean, by the rivers, to empty this out, because it's so huge and it's so big. And I'm so, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to feel all of it. I'm not afraid to feel it, but I don't want to push it down. I can't push it down. I can't run by it. I got to dive into the ocean and I got to empty it. And I am blessed to have people that can witness me and hold me in that. But anybody else that's feeling that, I just want to acknowledge it, and I just want to thank you all. It's just such a breath of deep, fresh air that I can be in this ritual space. So thank you.
Oh, Rita, you're so beautiful.
I also wanted to share something that when I was looking at my ancestry, I found it traced back to the Pilgrims, and then I was finding all these ancestors who had slaves or who were leaders in Indian slaughters. And it's put like a stone in my heart where I don't know how to even share that in a way. Like, how could someone accept that? You know? So I guess, like, yeah, I just want to know how that could be reconciled with, like, the other that I feel like my ancestors hurt a lot.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, Evan, may I respond?
Yeah.
I have done great harm to other human beings. Some of them have been my own children. And we don't typically think of that. We don't think about how these microaggressions that each of us is capable of constitute human consciousness at one level. And so how I forgive your ancestors is the same process by which I have to forgive myself for forgetting who my children are, for forgetting what a human being is for being callous, for being exploitative, for being stone-hearted, for letting my rage give me permission to do unholy things. There's not a human population that hasn't perpetrated against another, itself or another. So this is not to take it away. This is not to ask, to say that descendants of European colonization have no accountability work to do. We all have accountability work to do. But it will not happen from a place of self-hatred. It is only love that will give us the courage to face what we have to face. And so I just, one human being to you, I don't know what happened to you. Oh, there you are. I say I love you. And that who you are, your love is big enough to hold the horrors of the past. It's just a matter of developing the practice.
Yeah, I guess right now it's like so much that
yes,
I'm just like trying to encompass it all, just trying to bear it. And I guess like that was the grief part that Rada, I think, was talking about.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm not trying to solve it or anything. It's a lot I didn't even look at my whole life, and I see it. I see the courage of it through my parents, and then into me. So yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just add something about offering? Well, I think it's an offering, but I Rita, when I heard your words, I felt such sort of power in hearing the grief of authenticity coming from, and I could feel almost the trigger of like, I can't hold that, but also feeling the need to hold that as well, and to give space to that. And if you or anybody wants to record something of that ritual or something onto another book, I will, almost like a grief shower, you could say, a shower of grief that can be held and I can be showered with, to feel the grief of others and witness that and to hold that as well. Then I offer my presence to hold that.
Brother, for that gift. The anxiety of virtual spaces is this desire to hold each other. I want to touch Ivan and your brother. I want to hold everyone here. And we will find our way. We will do it. We are doing it. It's happening now. I know, Aaron, we're done with anything we want to share, right? Or is there something else behind the scenes, the curtains you want to bring to the fore?
Well, there's a couple of people who have their hands up, and I'm aware of the time, and we're in our white people time. Here we are on the hour or half hour. So I want to make a space for Emma because she opened her, she rose her hand, and there's a couple of other people. But Emma, did you have something you wanted to offer?
So this is going to be down to the background sounds of my children jumping.
Great.
Laughing. So if you can hear me, this is a very short piece, and I will post other pieces. I'll probably post them in Facebook. But this is just a quick gathering. It goes like this: ecstasy of space, the ability to hold more, to open. Evoked, to shut down, to open. Come closer. Mother of capacities, mother of empathy. Touch the earth. Libations, 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 pouring from eyes, from mouths, honoring all. And yet I hold back, keep back, and saying, I feel apart and back together. I'm lost and then found.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Emma. Thanks to all of you who are offering yourselves in this space. So the special announcement is just if you haven't found an ally and you're still looking for one, do let me know. There are still folks who are ally lists out there and looking for a partner. So you can always write me and with any questions. And the last thing I want to speak, and then maybe I want to just check and see if Sayani has anything to offer, that kind of links to this, is that I just want to say that for my, and I put this on Erin's post this morning in Facebook, we hear you about the experience of Facebook. And I'm working with it myself, invite you into the mayhem. And also I feel like it's a good time for us as a hearth holding team to have a conversation about organizing all that we're putting out there and making that accessible. So that's a conversation thread that I am taking on to bring to the group, and let's see what emerges, and just try to stay present as we've been practicing, even in the overwhelm, is my invitation there. And I don't know if Sayani, if you want to add anything. I haven't heard your beautiful voice this morning.
Yeah. A part of me doesn't want to break the space that some of us might feel like a part of, the silence maybe, through the class that we stepped into, and bring in all the things that happen outside of the class. So part of me feels like not breaking that, and yet, yeah. So all the things that came up in the different things, starting from bios, what writing prompt around touch, and something around double slit experiments, and then where it's okay ended with the journaling part. I think I can list it all out and put it on the Facebook group, as well as the mailing list that we put out. I think today or yesterday, we can make use of that and maybe compile all the sources that people have shared and different things, and maybe other, and I see that at least 2 or 3 that I know of, different conversations that came up that can be taken up separately. For example, something around yoga that I want to be part of, but I think another 1 or 2 as well, maybe. So that's what comes to mind right now. And yes, I guess, yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thanks, Sayani.
Sayani. And in the grief and joy travel together. And to open our doors to one is to open our doors to the other as well. So this is a rich space, and I'm grateful for it. And I would just like to call on Brenda again to close the circle as we say goodbye till next time. Brenda, you there?
Yep, right here.
Thank you, sister.
Oh, my heart is so full with the beauty of all of you and the richness of all that we have coursing through our veins, all of our ancestors, knowing that we, as Isoki mentioned, we carry all kinds of history in our bones. You know, I carry history. I may identify as an Indigenous person, but I carry Indigenous and colonizer blood in me. And there is beauty in all of those people. And there was pain and suffering in all those people. And I hold it all with love. And it's taken me time and practice to be able to do that. So thank you for this space, Isoki, and all the team. I just feel really moved. So I want us to close with a short blessing that was given to me by an elder who I've adapted a little bit since then. And so I'm going to ask you to place your hands on your heart. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourselves and repeat after me. So this first set is for our sacred self, our beautiful self. So you repeat after me. I am loved.
I am loved.
I am a blessing.
I am
a blessing.
I am sacred just the way I am.
I am
sacred
just the way I am.
I'm sacred just the way I am.
I have dignity.
I have dignity.
I have dignity.
And I have wisdom and gifts for the whole.
And I have wisdom
and gifts
for the whole.
And then now I want you to open your eyes and look at everybody else, and you're going to repeat after me. You are loved.
You are loved.
You are a blessing.
You are a blessing.
You are sacred just the way you are.
You are sacred just the way you are.
You have dignity.
You have dignity.
You have wisdom and gifts for the whole.
You have wisdom and gifts for the whole.
And so it is.
So it is.
You have dignity.
Bye, everyone.
You have wisdom and gifts for the whole.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you soon.
Can wait.
Next time.
He's going away.